Welcome back again. So, in this video, we are going to talk about an increasingly common frustration that both producers and songwriters are experiencing. The root of that frustration is the growing number of people who claim they are audio engineers, but don't care for the craft. Because of the vast accessibility and low financial commitment for entry into pro-level audio engineering software and tools, the bar is pretty open for anyone to claim they are on a pro level. And because of this, a lot of artists as well as producers are getting burned with below substandard quality, as well as what can only be described as middle school level lemonade stand business practices. Quite a few of these artists and producers are pretty fed up and are convinced that if it's going to be this much of a hassle, they might as well do it themselves, and I can't say that I blame them. However, there are a lot of voices on the internet, all with opinions on what plugins you should use, which DAW is the best to use for whatever genre, analog versus digital, the list goes on. But what I want to focus on is something that can actually make a difference on the way you mix, especially if you are a producer or a songwriter where your background is more in composition and creating something musical. This specific tip can simultaneously help you develop your ears in an audio engineering fashion, and that something is simply levels. Let's take a look. So whenever I start a session, I start with listening for what sticks out first, and then eventually work my way to every track to get the levels where I want them. Occasionally, I'll solo something just to refresh my ears with that particular track. It's important to note that despite whatever plugins I use, that this balance is maintained. In this example, I'm using Slate Digital VMR. Since this EQ does not have a master output, I'm using the trimmer plugin to match the levels after the EQ changes by looking at the peaks. This kick, for instance, it's peaking around -6 dB. So with the trimmer plugin, I will match the post EQ signal to -6 dB. In a session, I don't solo much since the goal is to make all the elements work together, not independently. But for this video, I thought it best to use soloing to make what I'm doing easily identifiable. Now, the reason for matching the volume between pre and post processing is so that the engineer can have as much of an unbiased view as possible on the changes made. The human ear perceives loudness as better, usually. So this method is to keep the engineer from fooling themselves. This means that once you bypass the changes made, the volume should remain the same. Now on to the snare. This compressor has an output function, so I won't need the trimmer plugin. Same principle as the EQ, matching the peaks. From here, I continue this method for the rest of the tracks. And now for the moment that makes all the difference. See how I'm able to mute all the effects on the channels, but the volumes of all the individual tracks stays the same. I can now focus when I'm listening to the changes I've made processing wise, but there's no volume changes. I'm not fooling myself into thinking, oh, it's louder. It must be better. It must be stronger. It must be punchier. No, I'm actually listening to just the processing now, and now I can actually make an informed decision on what needs to happen with the mix. I hope this video was helpful, and thank you for watching. Happy mixing.